is inscribed as. This is the constitutive root of social objects, which means that social objects are generated by social actors, such as they involve at least two persons. There is something I can do alone. There are many things I can do alone. For instance, I can give me a pen. In this moment, I'm not giving me really a pen. I give a pen in the case I give the pen to another person, but by myself I can give me a pen. I can, without a society, is no question of make testaments or bets or stock exchange or money and so on and so forth. They all suppose I can give orders, I can do speech acts, and so I always at least two persons, many times much more than two persons, and this also requires an act which, for instance, to think to marry is not to marry. In order to marry, you should pronounce some words in a peculiar way. To think to buy a plane ticket is not to buy a plane ticket. In order to buy a plane ticket, it is necessary to type something on a screen and to make some operation. Characterized by the fact of being inscribed in people's heads, on paper, in a computer file, or in a mobile. This also explains why all these recording instruments are so important for life, and why we are full of all these kind of recording instruments, because they are the basis of the recording of social acts. They record social acts. In order to show this point, imagine a marriage between people who are all Alzheimer's ill. All. The two who married, the person who made the marriage, the witness, and the parents, all the people Alzheimer's ill, all, and the day after. And there are no doctors. The day after still exists is marriage. Clearly not. And this is the difference vis-à-vis, for instance, a mountain. A mountain, a natural object, exists also when we don't think about the mountain. We have no memory of the mountain still exists. But a dead exists only insofar someone has inscription in a state or other word of this death. This also explains, for instance, the difference between hurricanes and economical crisis. In a sense, they are catastrophic. Both, in a sense, they are independent from individual will. But there is a way of blocking economical crisis, and is to or destroy the entire humanity, or destroy all the memories of humanity, but in this precise moment disappear the economical crisis, which does not happen with the hurricane. Both the solution is not good. I mean, the solution is destroying all the memories of the humanity. But this explains to us the difference between natural object and the social object. In my sense, we have three kinds of classes of objects. The natural object, they exist in place, not in space. In place and time, they do not depend on subjects, exactly because this table does not depend from me. I can disappear, this table still exists. Ideal object, things like, for instance, number theories and so on, they exist outside the space and time, and they do not depend on subjects. And finally, which is corpuses are social objects. They exist in space and time. And they depend on subject. I mean, if we have no subject, we have no things, such things like, for instance, Serbia, Europe, books, lesson, relationship, goals, credits, exam, certificates, ratings, academic degree, status, so on. So all these kind of things exist only insofar exist subject, and those subjects have a kind of memory and some kind of record. And this explains why, for instance, paper is so important in social work. This is an image of Neville Chamberlain coming back from Munich with a piece of paper in which was written, Germany won't not have a bad relationship with the United Kingdom, signet Hitler. We're not so sure, but it's symbolic that this is one of the most famous photographs of last century. And what he was showing was this piece of paper saying that the peace was obtained. And I would also show another short example on the importance of registration in the society, and the importance of recording, registration, inscription, writing is the confirmation for me of the fact that the constitutive rule of a social object is not X count of Y and Z plus collective intentionality, but object inscribed act. Let's take an object which was for me the origin of my interest on social objects. It was a very modest origin, at least in its appearance, a cell phone. Note the cell phone characterizes a kind of Pentecostal diffusion, a kind of cosmopolitic diffusion, much more than European spirit, because we can find it in people that are kind of religious taboo. For instance, Muslim cannot drink wine, and Mormon cannot use belt. Can use belt, but can use cell phone. He can use cell phone. He can use cell phone. He can use cell phone. They are using cell phone in Mongolia, and it's very complicated. Seemingly we are ancient cell phone, but in fact they are very advanced, at least at the moment, because Mongolia is difficult to have a connection. They are coming back from Mecca and use the cell phone. Not that since 10 years or more than 10 years, British Muslims receive 5 times a day an SMS recalling the order of prayer, which is very comfortable. In fact, should be suggested as a practical alternative to the bells, also for Christmas, because it makes no noise. It's very practical. And ora et labora, she cries and she speaks, because this is a kind of prayer instrument, and this, but it's much more diffused by of the European spirit, much more diffused of the European spirit. Why? Not. Interesting is that not the interest of this kind of object is that it was at the origin an instrument of communication, and a landline phone without the cable and became an instrument of registration, of recording. As iPhone now has a memory which is much more wide of the memory of a good PC of 15 years ago. And why appeared this point? Why something which was to speak? The very beginning is this one, but evolved in the sense of writing. And this was not known. Suppose that SMS will develop so much. All people, also people of the phone companies, suppose that SMS would be only a way of communicating among technicians, or to receive or to say you leave Croatia, you entered in Serbia, and so the border disappeared on the roads, but reappeared on the SMS. But in fact, it developed as a kind of writing and a kind of recording. This is a coffin. It's not a phone cell, but it's a coffin in Ghana with the form of a phone cell. Now you can see some vegetation on. So why can build itself a coffin, a cell phone coffin? There are also people that use normal coffin, but introduces in the normal coffin a cell phone. Why again? Because it's not to speak, there is no field, and the battery is not enough. It also makes no sense to put into the coffin a landline phone, for instance. Really, no one will put in this coffin a landline phone. So the question is why? It's because in the cell phone we have the registration of all the relations of our life. Exactly like the Pharaoh will put in his coffin all the relations, slaves, and so on. Here we have all the relations. So the supposed instrument of communication evolved as an instrument of recording. In very few times, it was not necessary this kind of evolution. In nature, supposing that exists something like nature in the world, of course not, but in nature, if the essence of the cell phone was to speak without cable, it would be sufficient that you have this one without the cable, and that's all. And on the very opposite, it evolved in a smaller child. Why? Exactly because the constitutive rule of social object is an inscribed act. All these kind of acts are centralized now in this kind of instrument. And constructing social reality last in many social. This is a town in Israel, a cell phone town. Note that also allows the idea of communication, because it is open. With a landline phone, it would be uneasier because you need an arm, but it's also give a new metaphysical meaning to the typical question we all make at the cell phone. Where are you? Because in a sense it's obvious. I'm here. But in another sense, who knows? But this kind of consideration allows me to suggest that Jacques Derrida, which for me has the powerful idea of the role of writing in constructing a social object, but does not develop in theory this kind of idea, said once in dermatology that nothing exists beside the text, or it's clearly not true that nothing exists beside the text, because we exist beside the text, natural objects exist beside the text, ideal objects exist beside the text. But it's true that nothing social exists beside the text, and this explains why we have all these instruments of recording. And also we have this instrument, which in Italian we call it the wallet. In Italian we call it portafogli, French portefeuille, which means bring piece of paper. And we don't, what is the name in Serbian of and it means
notes.
Money. Money holder.
Money holder. Money. You are more materialist. For us, it's not only money, but for you, photograph of sweet persons and identity cards, credit cards, less material, more spiritual. But the reference to this kind of paper still exists, and I suggest this experiment. Preserve all tickets and pieces of paper which you collect in a day, which are many pieces of paper, and to every piece of paper they give you, or you gave to someone, there is a social act. Buy the ticket, pay the newspaper, pay the coffee, and all these kind of things is related to social act. And secondly, do the same with traveling, for instance. We discover a huge file of documents, and each file corresponds to a social act. In a sense, the secret story of our travel. So, what I want to suggest also is that we usually speak of the society. In the 19th century, it was very common to speak. We live in the society of communication. And to me, there are two problems in this kind of thesis. First, our society is not especially a society of communication, where many ways of communication, but also the Neanderthal man lived in a society of communication. They say something to each other. Secondly, if we don't have a way of recording, our communication is a news. And note, this was one of the images that disappeared in my presentation. It's not a trick of the spirit, but it's simply a program of passage between Mac and PC. But there was an image of a television of the 60s. Imagine, use your reproductive imagination, imagine the TV of the 60s. It's easiest to remember, say, Ramesses II, because who knows, it was exactly Ramesses II or Ramesses I. But a TV of the 60s is easy to imagine. So this TV of the 60s, is exactly like a telephone of the 60s, was without any memory, any kind of memory. And also radio was without any kind of memory. Now, when we hear the radio, at the beginning they say, you can rehear this program in streaming at this order, they give you the order. That means that is, in a sense, the provision of the recording at the very beginning of the oral act. So that you can imagine that this is the technological device now, and this suggests to us that the society of communication is much more a society of recording. You can't have a society without recording, And the essence of the society is recording because of the law that I suggested it was writing this unscribed act. It's also a society of perception. Now, for instance, now someone is calling me. I am aware that someone is calling me. If I live in the murderous age of amnesic phone and of stable phone in a house, this person calling me in Turin, I will have nothing at all about this call, and when I come back to Turin, I will have no moral obligation of recall. This is not the case because here remains the recording of a call, and the simple recording of a call produces a moral obligation. And this explains why it is so important, the recording. For instance, philosophers often making mistakes on social objects, for instance, promises. David Hume said that promise is the manifestation of a will. No, it's not simply the manifestation of a will, because promise exists also if I change my will. And what makes the promise is a social object independent from my will is recording. If at 2 p.m. I decide to go, I will go to the movie this evening. And at 3 p.m. I decide I would not go to the movie this evening. That's okay. This is simply my will. There are no social objects. This remains in my head. But if at 2 p.m. I decide to go to the movie, and at 3 p.m. and 2:30, I say to someone, let's go together to the movie this evening. If at 3 p.m. I change my idea, I should, at 3 p.m. again call this guy and say I changed my idea. And so the social object is constructed by the registration. This also explains something which is very interesting of our time, of less than 30 years of our life, which is for many of you all your life, but for people like me, it's not only a part of my life. But for instance, remember, for instance, last year it was the 40th anniversary of the American on the Moon. Do you remember? And I believe that I thought, many other people thought, what kind of idea was going to the moon? And what was and the idea was that the future was going to the moon. And note that, for instance, in 2001 Space Odyssey, in the flying ship of this science fiction movie, there are no PC at all. They write with a normal writing machine, and there is an artificial brain, but it speaks. It's hard. It's not. This means that in 1968, also in a science fiction movie, none will predict the explosion of the brain. Also, this McLuhan. This is a ridiculous translation of a book, Klaxer, the instrument of communication, and this is ridiculous not only because they gave to the Liberty Statue someone which empirically McLuhan could not predict, because at this time this instrument would not exist, but also they gave something which for theoretical grounds was not predictable for McLuhan, because also the idea of McLuhan is that writing will disappear, will remain only pure communication. And what happened was exactly the opposite. The explosion of writing and the explosion of instrument of recording. All we have is instrument of recording. This is not accidental. This is not a perversion of our age. It's to me the reason, the profound reason, the deep reason of our social ontology. The fact that the object, the social object, are written acts. Also, another example, and it's almost finished my presentation. For instance, this is a jumbo. It exists since more than 40 years. And 40 years ago, the jumbo existed, but there was no globalization. So that globalization does not depend on goods, because goods was separated also at the time of Roman Empire, not on the simple communication, but on the basis of inscription. The fact of transferring big quantities of inscription from one part of the world to the other part of the world is the basis of globalization. The beginning of globalization was the introducing of computers in London Stock Exchange at the beginning of the 80s, because this was the beginning of this kind of transformation. Thus makes that now in Belgrade I can buy a ticket in Italy for a local transfer Monday. And this is not simply what I can do in Belgrade, I can do it everywhere. And this is, the reason is something that is not modern like the jumbo jet, but ancient like the writing. Well, in this sense, we have not to imagine that on the basis of our social action there is a shared intentionality. They say that is more classically explained the social action as the imitation. Imitation is the true reason of our social action. The inscription, you can find out that there are the image was simply a Greek, an ancient Greek writing on a tablet something, not that the tablet of ancient Greek was exactly like OPC, because the same shape, and producing documents. And this explains why there was why in the moment in which we have some kind of instrument of recording, we can live without this kind of documents, except we are very powerful. But note that already also the Pope has a cell phone. The other Pope has not a cell phone. Was his secretary with his cell phone. The present Pope has a cell phone. And what I want to suggest is that if we want to speak about spirit, we can say that in a sense spirit is doc, this extension document that occupied our life in every single moment of our social action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that this presentation will provoke many questions. So I propose a question section to make a break, and then after the break we have the presentations of Professor Fernandez and Jolanta. Let me use my role as moderator to ask the first question. So we saw yesterday, and especially the day before yesterday, that Europe was defined geography in Avery's presentation, economics, morality, anti-politics, David Shamberg's formulation. You say that it can be defined through documentality. What do you think about the following assumption that if we look at Kohlberg's description of phase of moral development, so you have this egoistic phase at the lowest level of development, so a small child, then the conventional phase, and then the moral phase. Is perhaps this documentality, which shows the resemblances, it seems to me, to Chandler's anti-politics, that this documentality is in fact possibly this conventional phase of the development of, in this case, Europe, you can also say humans, and that in the far future, for generations to come, that this will be replaced gradually by Kohlberg's third phase, which is the moral phase, or to use Kant's term, the ethical commonwealth. So we might have to say first goodbye to Kant, bring Kant back in this later phase. So this is I have also another question, but I will not abuse my role now. So I'll give the word now first to Professor Babic, then gentleman over there. Yes, and you too. Please.
Okay. First, I would like to say that I appreciate very much and enjoy in your lecture, and I'd like to say thank you for that. Before I raise a small question regarding the clarity of your lecture, I would like to have two small comments. One is that I like very much your question, where is the being of the poem, and the social construction of such entities is very much hidden, as you explained. It's not easy to see where it is. Sometimes, however, it's becoming very much visible, as it happened in 1945, when the whole Poland suddenly moved 40 kilometers west. And anyone who was knowledgeable in the reality of social facts should have been convinced by that very fact of moving a very large country in the space. We have a more impressive example in with the Kingdom of Armenia, which moved from high Caucasian mountains out to the Mediterranean Sea, containing pretty much the same size and same shape all the time, moving down to the sea and then going back to the space in a nice time, 1,000 years, of course. It's that moving of the country. It's amazing. The other remark is regarding, 2001. At first it wasn't hard, that computer. The computer has been, as it should have been, HAL as a computer. It became hard by getting a proper personal name when it, HAL, became a tool, a person. And that's very, very interesting, very fruitful field to explore. Now I come to my small question. It's reflecting something that I didn't find in your lecture, and I feel the absence of it is something that might be interesting. You are speaking of the construction of social reality as objects being inscribed acts. All the time you are talking in full accord with Searle's book Intentionality as collective intentionality, despite the fact that you are talking about constitutive rules of social objects as inscribed acts. What I miss there is one concept, that is the concept of decision. I think social objects are making a decision. So a decision is target. And the problem there is that that decision is made by social entity, not by any individual. Or at least I think it cannot be reduced to any number of individual decisions. It's a decision of that social reality, which shows that that social reality is something alive, something having a capacity to make a decision, having a collective identity, actually. So the being of that social construction would parasitize on some physical reality, some molecules, as we said, but the reality of that is different. So that's my question, and in relation with that, very somewhat maybe incorrect question. Does Searle use the term being, or does reality? I feel more comfortable with the term reality than with the term being. I think he may be wrong with that. It's more neutral, and less condensing that metaphysical, possibly obscure implications.
Okay, thank you. I propose, if you agree, that we answer, that Professor Ferraris answers 2 by 2 questions.
Okay.
Right? Because there is so much material here.
Yes, also because it's 2 by 10.
Well, for your question, I agree, but in the sense, when I say that spirit is dog, this is not, say, a reductionist theory. Spirit, in last instance, is dog. It's also, spirit is produced by dog. Spirit can be induced by dog. If we answer where is the spirit, we find that exists in document. For instance, the so-called religion of the spirit, which are also the universal religion, things like Islam, Hebraism, or Christianism. Usually explain, especially Christianism, this universality, this Catholicity, universal, on the basis of the spirit. They say there is a spirit, a universal spirit. In fact, the universality is of the letter. They dispose of some sacred books that you can also find in your hotel. You will find the universal spirit in your hotel because it's disposable. You can find now also on internet, and this is the basis of the universalization of the spirit, the universalization of the letter. Otherwise, if you have no texts, your religion will remain fixed on this tree, this river, and so on. There are no universalization. In this sense, habits, institution, and all which causes imitation produces habits or in us, and in this sense it also produces moral habits. And this is not, say, a relativistic assumption, because I find that if something is produced, if something in culture is produced by culture instead of by nature, I don't find that this thing produced is less important, relevant, and so on and so forth. Many times people, not all people, but some philosophers, for instance, says that to ground something on nature is to say that this is very relevant, and to ground it on culture is to make that one can change the idea from today to tomorrow. We have many proofs that what is grounded on culture survives, in a sense, much more than what is grounded on nature.
Yes. Well, the reason why I asked that was that you talked about the European Union as the producer of these documents, since these documents are not merely or not primarily moral in nature, the standards, and so I see them more as conventional documents. So that what I said does not imply that the future we're talking about cannot be documented, put into documents. So
I mean, we can resume all this in the famous motto, pride, the faith will follow. Because so if you induce some habit, some conviction, some shared attitudes, then you can yes. Note that Pascal was a believer, not an unbeliever. Because when one say, pray, the faith follow, was an atheist. No, it was Pascal, which was also a producer of the recording machine, because he produced the first computer. What is the several important observation of Professor Ferraris? It's very interesting, this history of Armenia, also the history of Israel, for instance. Yes, and note that the coming back of Israel to the territory was based on a book. Exactly on a book, and if the transfer would be in Madagascar, which was one of the hypotheses, it can also worse. Why not be now we have conflicts in Madagascar, but at the very basis, what was relevant was the book, which was in the sense of the identity of the nation. For what is hard, it's true, but note that at the time, people and philosophers was speaking of artificial intelligence. The idea was of producing something that was able to think.
Not only think, but to feel, and being offended, and being able to murder and punish acts, so having the capacity to make decisions. That was the crucial point. And it was created by accident, so it's logically speaking coherent. Yes. We may say that we cannot produce persons.
Yes.
Because it would be playing gods. But it doesn't mean that it's not possible. It may happen accidentally.
Yes, but what happens after is that we had many stupid machines, not intelligent machines. Those are clearly stupid machines because they simply have memory, not that we are intelligent persons only because we have memory. That this is memory. Yes, and this is the reason why Alzheimer is is this kind of anxiety. If you end up having memory, you also end up thinking. There is not such so that also again there the spirit is the letter is from in But we anyway represent this kind of machine as stupid machine, not as intelligent machine. Not that now, some months ago, appeared the news that they really developed the idea of artificial intelligence, and they produce a machine, a very big machine, who was able to make the reasoning of a cat. And they say, in 20 years, we will have a man.
Can you just interfere at this point, because I think I have comment on that, and it concerns also this question, which was Professor Barbic about feelings, etc. First of all, I really enjoyed your lecture, and it was a really full experience. And I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Robert Fada. He developed the concept of interpassivity. This concept is based on Lacan's reading of Antigon in 7-7, Ethical Psychoanalysis. And Lacan found in Greek tragedy the role of a choir, to comment instead of us, to feel, to comment instead of us. And when you mentioned prayer and SMS in Muslim religion, in Buddhism we have these praying meals, so they pray instead of us. And Robert Fada develops all kind of examples. For example, in television we have these stupid comic shows where canned laughter is appearing instead of us. And then you have, and he said, "Die Dinken lachen an unserer Stelle," which means that things are, not
important. Because at funerals,
exactly. And he also says that some intellectuals copied books which will never be read because it was already done. And we all record films, and the machine will look at the films instead of us. So this will be very in your direction.
Yes.
And if I was related to the disposition, I would ask you a question concerning Hegel. I didn't understand well. I think that you said that what Searle says about spirit and Hegel are a bit similar. But there's a famous Hegel's dictum, spirit is a ball. And it might go in your direction, spirit is a dog, and bones, as it happens, might get stuck in the throat. So this is quite nice, for your purposes. But I have questions too. For instance, when you're talking about money, and you said about this Enron thing, you said that one can use it. One can use this in the bathroom, for instance. From a Marxian point of view, every commodity has a use value and exchange value. First question would be, is exchange value a social object? Second question would be, what does your theory say about commodity fetishism? Commodity fetishism means in Marx that the relations between subjects, people, appear as relations between things. And if I may, just a comment concerning your really nice examples of tongues and etc. There was a famous rock group in Slovenia called Dutch France, and they had a song, "God does not have a telephone, but talk does." Okay.
The next, the sequence will now be Ivanovic, Milenko, right? But I think this answer.
I should answer to Professor Babic, and then yes, thank you. And I asked to the reference to the book you mentioned,
yes,
to the spirit you mentioned. No, I was speaking about this idea. I find it very interesting, the fact that there was the dismissal of the project of artificial intelligence going back to memory and discovering that memory is largely enough for all we need. It was also interesting fact that now there is this attempt of making a machine that now it thinks like a cat. In 20 years it will think like a man. Note that in 19 years it will think like a stupid. Because, and this will be the moment of crisis, because it will destroy it all. But the question of decision. I feel that the decision is something which has to do with our individual intentionality. I do not deny that exists individual intentionality, in the sense I feel to have a representation in my mind, wills that I feel as free wills. Maybe I'm simply a very complicated machine which represents itself as having free wills. But it is a part of my self-understanding to have free wills, and I also have a theory of mind, of other minds, as having free wills, and this is why I say, oh, what a gentleman, oh, how a stupid man, and so on, because I have this kind of theory. But this not excludes that this intention is grounded on an inscription grounded on imitation, many ways. The reason why culture is so important, education is so important, depends directly from the need of the intervention of inscription in constitution of intention. And we also the consciousness that intention or quasi-intention, quasi-free intention can be used and produced. Advertising, populism, and so on are grounded. People, companies pay much money in order to induce quasi-intention which are perceived as free will. Because people, when buy something or vote someone, say, I do it not because I am stupid in using it.
But why perceive? Why not just the acts? For example, we have laws or promises to social institutions, or changes in structuring, or changes in the units of the board. All that happens in a way that through maybe a kind of decision. I wouldn't assume that it's conscious. It may be very conscious. Like the change in the meaning of the board. Awful means not something positive and not negative.
Yeah.
And it should be. But act as a decision. I feel that the thing is not finished when you stay by intention. Intention should be finished in an act for making a decision. The decision might be a correct decision, which is not reducible to corrective individual decisions.
Yes, this is right. We know that also exists a collective decision, but this is not the way of collective intentionality in source mind, but is the idea of spirit in Hegel's mind. Because source assumes that collective intentionality is a natural primitive which exists in ourselves. I don't believe that it is so. And the explanation is that we need training, we need work in order to produce this collective spirit. That, for instance, Search makes always the example of an orchestra playing or a football equipe. They make many kind of they play many efforts in order to create this kind of shared intentionality. It is not something that appears in a natural way as Sir suggested. Now, a way of grounding collective intentionality is saying that exists this mirror neurons in our brain. You know the story that this mirror does acts when I say someone acting. I believe that this is the proof of the crucial role of imitation in animals and in humans, not of collective intentionality. About being, being instead of reality. Yes, you are completely right. This was a joke because I was by myself making an allusion to this passage of Introduction to Metaphysics of Heidegger, in which he says, where is the being of the state? And he says, is the ambassador who speaks and so on, and then the writing machine of the secretaries. And it excludes that is in the writing machine of the secretaries. To me, is in the writing machine of the secretaries. It's very true what you say about recalling that speak this book. But it's very concrete, the idea of spirit in Hegel, and especially he has all the feature of objective spirit that in fact is the field of what is called documentality. And it's surprising that now in the common sense, the philosophical common sense, Hegel is the past and collective intentionality is the present, the modern, the etc. But we know how mode, fashion, and so on interfere also in on the point of if exchange value is the
We can test it because they won't be dying. Thank you.